Hello, how are you? Fine, folks. I'm in a new position here. Hopefully it doesn't wiggle and wobble too much. And just coming on, I think I'm gonna talk about like table tipping, probably Ouija boards, probably some other things. I guess it is a Halloween time period, isn't it? So probably a good time to discuss those things, but I'm gonna let the hey Shelly, how's it going? Give it a little bit of time. It's my little Pisces cup that my friend Marlo gave me. It's a little fishy cup. Hi Maria, it's nice to see you. Isn't it your birthday? Happy birthday? Is that today? I think it is, but I'm not sure. Okay, so yes, it must be then. Oh, yesterday, okay. Cool, happy birthday. Belated birthday. Hi Kathleen, hope you're doing well. Nice to see you popping on there. Thanks for joining me, thanks for watching. I'm excited. I missed last week's because I went to a wedding, and so the next day I was completely dead. So I'm trying to make up for it now. Okay, so what I was thinking of talking about today was doing on table tipping and Ouija boards and spirit communication. Basically alternative ways of spirit communication that is not done with, hey Megan, not done with a medium, basically. I mean, sometimes, sorry, 1 second. Sometimes you can use, sometimes even when we're using these alternative ways of communicating with the other world, oftentimes a medium is still present and still needed. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So the first one I want to talk about is table tipping. I love table tipping. Table tipping for me is so much fun. It can be so much fun, but it also takes a lot of time to develop. It's not something that happens very, very quickly most times. Basically what table tipping is, hi Allison, what table tipping is you get a little table, ideally with some weight to it, not too light, not too heavy. I wish I would have brought mine home, because then you could have seen it. It's generally going to be about, I believe, 3 feet tall and about 2 feet wide. It's usually a good standard size of a table. And then everyone sits around the table. Ideally, there's 3 to 4 people is probably ideal for that small table. But I've seen, up to 8 people on a table before, but that's a much bigger table. Anyway, table tipping, you place your hands very, very lightly, just very lightly on the table. Not enough to where there's any strain or pressure even. You just place your hands very, very lightly on the table, and you wait, basically, and you'll sing, you'll play music, you'll talk to each other, and you're, inviting the other world to be with you and utilize the table. I would say if the table springs into life in one quick go, I'd have some questions, because oftentimes the power has to be built up before these things will happen. And so you can usually feel it. You can feel the power changing, you can feel the energy changing, and then hopefully what will happen is eventually you'll start to get either little knocks or pops on the table, which is very, very exciting when you get those, oftentimes in response to your questions or things like that. And then eventually what would hopefully happen is the table would eventually move. Sorry, there's like little flies around here. And as the table moves, you want to let it take its time before you start plying it with questions, to build up the power, build up the energy in the table. And generally they'll let you know when they're ready to communicate, basically. Then what happens is it becomes like some sort of almost like a Ouija board, in that they're going to be tapping out messages through the table. So the table will tip, hence table tipping, and it will tip and it will tap, just start tapping, and then the sitter or whoever's the leader of it will be counting, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and when the table stops, that's the letter they want to stop on. And so then once you have that part, sorry, there's a fly that is just flying everywhere. Once you get that, you'll get the next letter, then they'll tap out the next letter, and then eventually you will get an entire communication. And you can ask it all kinds of questions. Loved ones can come through on the table. Guides more often come through on the table. The key too with table tipping is not trying to figure out what the next word's going to be. It's just allowing it to unfold, because sometimes we can subconsciously influence the table. The other cool thing about table tipping is, so the communication obviously, and you need to have intelligent communication coming through, otherwise I have a lot of questions about what's going on. Because a table can move not necessarily by, spirit influence. A table can also move through kinetic energy of the group. It can move by unintentional movements by people in the group, and then it can also move with intentional movements of people. I find mostly what happens is people get impatient and they start subtly influencing the table. I'm not saying that always happens, but I notice that people really, they have a hard time with waiting and letting things build up because they want the thing to happen so bad. But you just kind of have to. It takes a long time to develop any kind of physical phenomena, oftentimes, unless you have the right mixture of people at once, basically. Every time we make any kind of spiritual group, whether that be, a trance group, a physical group, table group, it's going to be an energy soup. There's going to be all different kinds of energies that are going to be present in that. And it's so important to make sure that you have the right mixture. And one of the biggest factors in that is going to be harmony. You have to have harmony. If there's not harmony in the group, you're not going to have any activity, really, because harmony is one of the key things that the other world needs to be able to come through with any level of clarity, because it's a very high vibration, and the spirit world needs high vibration to bridge the gap between their world and our world. So if there isn't harmony and friendship between the group, you might as well just stop sitting, because it's not going to do anything. Let's see, what other things about table that are important. It should be done in low lit conditions, if not in the dark, but I would kind of not want you to do it in the dark necessarily, because it's easy for people to manipulate the table and you can't see if anyone's doing that. So I would recommend, very, very low lit, maybe red light. When I've done a lot of table tipping, it's been done in green light because we can't cover the exit sign in the room, which worked just fine. But lower lighting the better in the beginning, just because it's easier for them to work, and light tends to kind of disrupt energy as far as, when they're creating physical phenomena and things like that. So the lower the better. There's nothing to fear from the other world. There's not going to be scary people coming in and, communicating. If you're not getting intelligent communication through the table, don't take whatever is being said, okay, as like gospel or truth. I've known of people who kind of ask questions to the table, and the table's tapping out, 1 tap for yes, 2 taps for no's, 3 for I don't know. And, they're asking, is this so-and-so? And I don't really like that kind of line of questioning, because it makes it too easy for if someone is, unconsciously influencing the table. Hi, Jackie. If someone is unconsciously influencing the table, then what ends up happening is they're just responding to the question, right? They're going to give you that 1 tap or 2 taps. Rather than do that, I would always encourage you to, establish who your communicator is first. Is this a guide? Who is this? Not by asking yes or no questions, is this so-and-so, but rather asking, who is here? And then allowing the spirit person to give their name. tap out their name, tap out, you know, whatever message that they want to say. That's going to prevent like accidental tumbling down a path of, you know, miscommunication. There needs to be intelligence expressed through the table. Otherwise, what's the point? The other thing that can happen with table tipping, which I love, is physical phenomena such as levitation, which is kind of the ideal. There's a lot of levitation that used to happen back in the day with, you know, Jack Weber. He was a physical medium. Estelle Roberts had table levitation. Gladys Osborne Leonard had table levitation as well. That's actually how her and Estelle and Gladys both got in contact with their spirit guide, who ended up becoming, you know, the famous guides that we know through the table. So table is a really good, you know, tool, especially, you know, for people that are developing and things like that, because it helps us to build the power, build the energy, feel the physical changes that happen in the room as physical phenomena is going to take place. Oftentimes we feel like a coolness or a breeze that's coming through. You'll feel that from like the knees down, or, you know, everyone can feel it different. You'll feel sensations, maybe pulling from your solar plexus, all kinds of things that you can feel. And I love that, because that's not something that can be faked. Those kinds of atmospheric changes and things like that, you can't make that up, you can't fake that. You're either going to feel it or you won't. So table levitation, I've seen tables slide up a wall before on one leg. I've seen tables slide across the room and then just leap into the air and then jump back down. So they're literally going woo, and our hands are like going up above our head, just like whoa, and which is really cool. Yeah, so table's really cool. I love table tipping. Just be patient. Find a group that is okay with nothing happening, you know, because when we have too much of our desire and want, it kind of tends to, you know, mess up the energy there. So it's about just being open to whatever the spirit world can bring forward. But you'll probably get knocks, you'll probably get coolness, you'll probably feel sensations in your body, which is great. Hopefully you'll be able to experience those things. Some people, it takes a long time to develop any kind of physical phenomena. So be patient. It can take a year even, you know, a bunch of sittings quite regularly to get any kind of results. But if you're just patient, sit for an hour, treat it as though it's, you know, just we're getting together, we're connecting to spirit, we're connecting, you know, in friendship and harmony, then, you know, then you're still having a good time. You can talk about things. You want to try to keep your conversation somewhat elevated, talking about love, talking about funny things. Laughter's really good with physical. So all those things are going to be really helpful. Just don't rush it. That's like what I can say about mediumship time and time again, is just don't rush it. So yes, I think that's everything. Are there any questions about table tipping or anything that you'd like me to kind of elaborate on? I don't see any at the moment, but if you do have any, just throw them out there as I talk about the next thing, and I'll come back to it. So, Ouija boards. Ouija boards are another means of, you know, communication. Those even more so than table tipping. You have to be really careful as far as people influencing the planchette. That's super easy to do because the planchette's very light. The planchette's the little thing you put your hands on as it moves. So yeah, that's something to be mindful of. So I did get a question about the table tipping, so I'm going to jump back to that for 1 second. Does it matter if the table isn't fully real wood? I've heard that it works better with natural materials. There's some sort of conductivity or something that makes it better. But I've known plastic tables to move. But I think sticking with, you know, wood or metal tables, that's probably best. I always use a wood table. I don't know why it works, but it tends to work better. And don't use too light of a table. That's the other thing. If you use too light of a table, it's so easy to accidentally manipulate it, basically. So don't do that. I would use somewhat of a heavier table. I don't know how much in pounds, but something heavier. Anyway, So thank you for that question, Megan. Um, Other thing, so yeah, back to Ouija boards. Ouija boards aren't the scary thing that people think they are. They're not going to be a portal to the devil and Satan is going to come and get you. None of that's going to happen. As you know, it's not. Again and again, I always say, the other world, the spirit world, and spirit communication, it's not as exciting as the TV wants you to believe it is, and media and all of that stuff. But at the same time, the reality of the other world and the spirit world is actually way more magical, way more amazing than, something spooky or going bump in the night. It's actually much more awesome and amazing. So there's that. Let's see what, yeah. So with the Ouija board, what you want to do is obviously, open in all of the work that you do with the other world. You always want to open in a prayer of some sort, and just offer that, your guides and helpers will be there with you, that they'll be the ones to help you, communicate through everything. Again, spirit communication through means of these other methods is a really positive thing. I mean, it can be. So again, you need to have intelligent communication happening with the planchette and all of that. Otherwise, it's not really doing anything. So if I were to pick between table tipping and Ouija board, I'd totally go table tipping time and time again, because it's so much harder to influence. It feels really, really cool. You can feel the energy moving, feel all the power, feel the physical phenomena that's happening. When it comes to Ouija board, it's not often that way. So, at least in my experience. Maybe other people have different experiences, but that's my experience. Obviously, opening your circle in prayer and closing it in prayer, I think, is an important thing, because you're really setting the tone and you're creating the invitation for the other world to draw close and communicate with you. So I think that's an important thing. And it's also just respectful and being thankful for the opportunity to connect in this way. If it doesn't work the first time, just be patient and try again and again and again and again. That's part of the reason why we don't see so much physical these days, is because people aren't willing to put in the work and the time that it takes for these things to develop. So if you don't get results right away, I highly recommend you keep trying and trying and trying, and realize that sometimes there's a lot of things that are going on, but you won't see it physically. A lot of it is happening behind the scenes, and it's something that was going to develop over time. And you never know when that moment's going to come, and suddenly you're going to have some really cool things happen. I remember I was sitting for table with some friends, and we were having communication and things like that. And on one of the nights that we sat, we had the table move just a little bit, and then there's a motorcycle coming by. Let's see what it does. I don't know which direction it's going. Anyway, hopefully you can still hear me. So this particular evening, the table moved once, and then we felt the atmosphere really start to change around us, and felt much thicker. There wasn't a whole lot of movement in the table, but what they ended up doing was created spirit lights in the room. So we're sitting there in, this green lit room from an exit sign, and we're seeing these little pinpoints of light moving around the room, or moving around in front of us, I should say. And all three of us saw it. It was really, really exciting. We were super amazed by it, and they would just come into focus and then disappear. And if any of you have ever seen Avatar, that big tree that has the little things that float off and kind of move like this, that's what they looked like, except super tiny, and these little light points coming in and out of focus. It was super magical, super amazing. So physical phenomena can happen, and it's super exciting when it does. So be patient, and hopefully you can experience that. Hey, Melinda. And hey, Kelly. So yeah, that's really cool. Another form of non-mediumistic communication is the electronic way of doing it. So EVPs, which is electronic voice phenomena, as well as what's the other thing? EVPs and ITC. So I forget what ITC stands for. I think it stands for no, I have no idea. Google it. ITC. it's the bigger, I believe, bigger umbrella of electronic communication, which can also be, images and pictures and things like that. But with EVP, it's basically electronic voice phenomena. It's basically where you can ask a question on a recording, and then hold for a couple of seconds for a response. And then what is with these bugs? This is why I always get just devoured by mosquitoes. Mosquitoes freaking love me. This is why I can't go to certain countries that have mosquito-borne illnesses, because I will be a message. And then one of y'all mediums are going to be like, you'd understand a gentleman who died of a mosquito-borne illness because he went to a country he shouldn't have gone to. That's what you guys are going to say. And then you'll raise your hand, and I'll be like, what up? It's Michael. Anyway. So, I was talking about something, and I totally lost it because bugs eat me. Any second now, it's going to pop back into my head. Aha. Electronic voice phenomena. So, with electronic voice phenomena, you ask a question, you give a pause, and then on the playback is when you're going to hear it. Okay? So, EVP is, it's really cool because you can get some pretty good results. I just spoke with Eileen the other day. She said, Eileen Davies, that's one of my buddies and teachers, and she was a tutor at the college, and she was telling me that they were doing some EVP, and they had some really positive results, very, very positive results with it, and everyone was, getting stuff on their recorders and things like that. And what was super cool too about it was they asked the same questions in different rooms, and they got the same answers. So two totally different groups were getting the same answers to the same questions. So it kind of shows a little bit of the intelligence of the other world, which I thought is very interesting. So yeah, you ask a question, is there anyone here? Then you pause. If so, what's your name? Then you pause. And so you're asking these questions out loud, and then when you play it back, hopefully you'll hear something on the recording. Sometimes they're really hard to hear, sometimes they're not as clear, but sometimes they're very clear and very easy to hear. So it's kind of exciting and kind of a really cool thing to do if you want to try to connect or get communication from the other side. So very, very cool thing. Is there any other kinds of communication that I want to talk about? I don't think so. But yeah, so these are some things that you can try, you can do, and just be patient with it. If it doesn't work the first time, don't give up. Give it some time and see if there's other ways that you can get. Right, so Megan just reminded me of the spirit box. So there are different tools that psychic investigators will use, like ghost investigators and things like that. And one of the tools they've developed is something called a spirit box, which will basically cycle through, I don't know what the right word is. What are they cycling through? Some of them cycle through radio frequencies, and they just give little snippets, and then others cycle through a database of the phonetic sounds in the English language. The theory is that the spirit world can then manipulate those things to create sentences. So there's all kinds of, within the paranormal investigating thing, they have a lot of tools that they use to try to get communication. So that's one of them. There's other ones too that are done with electromagnetic fluctuations, which then can they've decided to make a word. I don't know. But those are things you can try too. I'm not big on those kinds of things, just because people often hear what they want to hear with them, but they can work, and I think they're fun to experiment with. Yeah. Do I want to say anything else about that? That's kind of it. But so anyway, I just wanted to leave you with those kind of cool things. If there's any questions, feel free to ask, because I'm happy to answer. Was there anything else I wanted to discuss? I think that's it, actually. But one of an experience, just while you guys kind of think of questions, an experience that I've had with EVP, which was amazing, which sort of actually initiated my I guess, research into spiritualism was I was trying to get EVPs on a recording, and basically I've been sitting there for some time asking these questions, waiting. I'm all zenned out and relaxed, and I remember saying, I actually have it on recording, obviously, because I was recording for EVP. My goal here is to establish a connection via the recording. If there has not been so yet, please make a connection onto the recording now. And literally my phone goes flying off the desk. And I thought that was amazing. It gave me the chills of my life, and I was very startled, but I knew it wasn't anything scary or bad. But it was very eye-opening and kind of triggered my looking more closely into spiritualism and physical mediumship and all that sort of thing. So some cool things can happen. Again, never be afraid of the other world. You have more things to be afraid of here than the other world, because if they're able to come through, they're coming through with love. So I do want to say that. I think that's it. I'm gonna leave that there. But thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Next week I will try to do another one of these. If you have any ideas of topics or things with mediumship, spirituality, development, astrology, because remember that's another hat that I wear, I'm happy to talk about any of that. So just feel free to leave a message, leave a comment about what you'd like to hear about, and I'd be happy to do that. So thank you again for tuning in. So lovely to see all of you who popped in and said hello. It's really nice to see familiar faces and names. So thank you so much, and I look forward to speaking with you guys again very, very soon.